The post-millennial, Trump slams fake news media after flood of negative headlines for record-setting Elon Musk X interview. He says, I spent 2.5 hours last night talking to Elon, a fantastic guy, getting all-time record views and hits, and all the fake news wants to report is the servers crashed because of the tremendous volume, and the show opened a little late. What they should be reporting was the incredible number of people that were listening. I absolutely hate the fake news media, so bad for our country. And then you have this from Elon Musk. He says, a wall of negative headlines was so predictable. They're such NPCs. All this does is drive even more people to listen to the conversation themselves and realize how much the legacy media lies to them. Let me pull this up. First, here's Jack Posobiec. He says, new hoax alert. For all the doubters claiming Trump was lisping on the call, it was just Space's compression. Here he is recorded on a phone in the same conversation sounding perfectly normal. Post this under anyone spreading the lisp hoax. Let's play this.
Biden actually did something that was impossible. Both sides hate him. You know, both sides. Yeah. That was a hard thing to do. Unification.
Well, there you go. I mean, there's a longer version with no lisp, but let's take a look at these headlines. And then I want to make a point about where we currently are with our media. Look at this. Trump rambles and slurs. Kamala Harris criticizes Trump for serving self-obsessed. That's not fair. They're calling out Kamala there. Here's a Trump list. So Donald Trump chatted with Elon. Here's the futures they see. Losers win. Incompetence rules. Musk Trump talks to our ramble. Here's what the headlines should have been. For any news outlet actually writing news, the headline should be Donald Trump and Elon X Space interview reaches 1.3 million concurrents, generates a 3-hour conversation. The point of the news is to tell someone what happened. All of these headlines from all of these outlets, none of them are actually informing anyone of anything.
They could add like the first in American history, which I believe that is for a nominee, right?
The first
time that's ever happened in American history.
What has
a space? Yeah, space
well,
like
Ron
that.
DeSantis did one.
He was a candidate.
Right.
Sorry, that was before the primary though. Right?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, too. I mean, the one criticism I do think is kind of fair is that it's basically just a radio interview to a smaller amount of people than we've seen in the past.
Right.
Like, if this was a general radio broadcast in 1940, it would have been like 20 million, 30 million at the time, because what else are people going to listen to if it was on TV with very few channels? So I do respect that this is a live stream space where people were actually a part of it and in it, though I don't know they needed to be. It was still massive in the digital age, and that is significant.
Yeah.
But the media should be just saying Elon Musk Donald Trump interview kicks off slightly late following claims of a DDoS attack.
I think
that's a headline.
All the headlines that are so desperately trying to convince people to not go listen to it, especially the Lisp claims, it's going to draw more people to go check it out.
Go hear his list.
And hear Trump in full context, which is exactly what they don't want because they rely on cutting out little bits and moving them around in manipulative ways. But when you listen to him, he makes a lot of sense. I think even a lot of moderates hear what he's saying in the space last night and agree with all of it.
I also think Musk is totally right about that when it comes to, they get the right gets to talk about what NPCs the corporate media is. That's going to that's also an opportunity to really wake people up as well because they can see the media bias. And each of those instances when it comes to displaying just egregious media bias is an opportunity to wake some people up that want to actually wake up, right? Not the activists or anything like that, but the people that are noticing these trends. It's a good opportunity to wake them up as well.
This is this is where we were always going. It was predictable 10 years ago. It was predictable 15 years ago. These media outlets, as I've long talked about, news doesn't generate any kind of money or revenue anymore. It used to be that news was a loss leader. The idea was if you were bidding on public airwaves, they'd say, here's the bandwidth that we have available in the public space. Everybody wants it. Who's going to get it? So you'd put a bid in. You'd say, I'll pay X amount to get this range, and I can use this for my broadcast for TV shows or whatever. They'd say, okay, but you have to dedicate 1 hour to news or like 3 hours to news broadcast for the public good. And you'd lose money from it. You wouldn't make a lot of money from it. CNN then comes around and they're like, we're going to do 24-hour news and sell commercials on this because people are going to tune into us. We're going to be in hotels, airports, and it worked for a while. Then once news drops off of TV and news becomes an actual business with Huffington Post and BuzzFeed, the question isn't, is reporting the news going to make us money? The question is, what articles get clicked on? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of websites where it's literally just, I don't know, recipes. And then you're trying to find a recipe for chocolate chip cookies. And then it's like 3 pages of a story about how my grandma survived the war and carried chocolate chips and, under her belt or whatever. And then finally you get to the bottom and you're like, oh, there's the recipe. The reason they do that, they want to cram as many ads as possible, and they want to get you to stay on the page as long as possible. So even cookie recipes haven't been saved from this. All of these big news outlets have turned into blogs. They've turned into opinion blogs because all they care about is maximizing clicks. Hence, shout out to the Washington Post for writing right-wing YouTuber Tim Pool buys skate park. There was no news. And it was the top trending story on Washington Post. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw Tim Pool on the top trending on their site.
The thing is, I'm gonna let you guys in on a secret. If you're trying to figure out how to get clicks, put Tim Pool in the headline, because for whatever reason, people want to know about me, I guess. So a guy from the Washington Post writes this story up. He interviews a guy from Pennsylvania about what's going on in West Virginia because there's no story at all. And it still becomes a top trending article for the website. Either I'm the most important person in the world because the Washington Post has me on the front page, top trending, or they literally have no readers left and they're desperate. And I got to be honest, if you're writing about me, you're at the bottom of the barrel. In fact, you're probably pulling up wood chips.
Well, and I think part of it with you, or at least that headline to me, is like, we are trying to scare people because especially the Washington Post has done a lot of reporting like this, which is basically to say the far right or people we don't like, these conservatives or whatever are creeping into your local areas and they're taking it over and they're ruining it. Like that is you could go through any of the reporting in the Washington Post in the last 2 years and you could find this to be a consistent theme that their journalists are pursuing. If they were actually trying to give the public insight into political trends and attitudes in America, they would really critically go over what Elon Musk said to Donald Trump, which is that he would not consider himself a Republican. He would not consider himself, deeply conservative. In fact, he said he voted for Obama and he would consider himself a moderate Democrat. But he feels motivated to throw his support behind Donald Trump because he does not like the direction the country is going in. If you were an actual unbiased reporter, you would look at that and say, there is something here. And if the wealthiest man in the world, or at least one of the top wealthiest men in the world, is saying this, then probably average Americans feel similarly to this as well. And why is that? That would be what they are following. Instead, it's about fear-mongering because fear and sex sell. And that's ultimately what the Washington Post in particular need right now as they try to stay afloat.
I mean, I'm not sure if any of us said this yet, but like, how is the number one story not, hey, when's Kamala going to do a sit-down interview? What's going on here? I mean, I know we've been talking about entertainment aspect of the media. Equally as dangerous is the fact that it's absolutely dominated by psychopaths.
And what about the headline where it's like Elon Musk offers Kamala Harris X space interview, Kamala declines? Mm-hmm. Or Kamala refuses to answer.
Right.
But mainstream media can't critique Kamala for that. Like, I watched a morning show where, one journalist is like, yeah, she's saying she's going to give an interview, but she hasn't yet. But they can't critique her because they don't want to lose that spot for their outlet, right? Like, they're all trying to suck up to the Harris campaign as much as possible so they get these interviews because she's not answering any questions. So I think there is this kind of gross dependency on Kamala Harris' campaign because they think she is the be-all and end-all of life, and they're not willing to do other work to attract readers.
Right. I just think it's a cult.
Yeah.
Look, Donald Trump, I'll keep it simple again because I know a lot of people have heard it, but this is important. The Republican primary was brutal. Ron DeSantis supporters fighting with Trump supporters, friends becoming enemies. I cried. I didn't really cry. But Nikki Haley was in the race. Vivek Ramaswamy. You actually had a lot of former Trump supporters defecting and saying, no, Ron's the guy. Because it's not a cult. And then you had Ron DeSantis supporters saying, F you Trump supporters, Trump is not good, you're nuts, and you're in a cult.
For sure.
And then you have people like me being like, Ron doesn't have the charisma. I like Vivek, but I don't think Vivek is ready. He doesn't have that X factor, although Vivek is incredibly good. If you watch everything he's doing as of late, Vivek is probably one of my favorite guys in the space right now. But Donald Trump just makes the most sense. On the Democrat side, Kamala Harris is installed. Nobody voted for her. She has no campaign policies. And they stand behind her cheering and waving signs, despite the fact that she has no policies. And then it was funny because I got into it with the Krasensteins. We love them. We love the Krasensteins. And I had tweeted Trump either has has bad advisors or no advisors. And this guy, I think it was Brian, he's like, when will you admit that it's Trump doing this and not his advisors? That's what cultists do. And I said, Brian, what do you think no advisors means? It means he's making bad decisions and no one's stopping him. And he's like, so you really think that Trump's making bad decisions and not advised and you'd still vote for him? Weird. And I was like, yes, because my alternative is a woman with no campaign policies that no one voted for with a bad track record. And I have no idea what she's for anyway. Not to mention the Biden administration is going to be pro-war, has been pro-war. And with Donald Trump, I know what he's offering, Agenda 47. Not that I think Trump is perfect. We routinely criticize him. And then I said, he hired John Bolton, the crackpot. Trump has made a lot of mistakes, but he's a marginally net positive president that I accept. But these people are in a cult. That's the media.
The only reason why they're able to get away with any of this stuff is just because they have this massive protective shield of, the corporate media, big tech, and all these groups that, it's funny because they dominate all these major institutions, and that's the only reason why they can, totally basically, ignore any criticism or anything like that from any conservative outlets or anything like that. But they'll turn around and they'll tell you that you're brainwashed, you're in the cult, and, oh, by the way, we're the resistance. You're not the resistance. Even though we owned everything.
We've had on the show on numerous occasions Clint Russell, who was running for VP of the Libertarian Party, Angela McArdle, the chair of the Mises Caucus for the Libertarian Party, Dave Smith. All of them have been very critical of Donald Trump, especially where it needs to be, to the point where I think Clint's position early on was like, I won't vote for that guy. Look at what he did during COVID. Look what he did with Operation Warp Speed. Dave Smith has never supported Donald Trump.
Right.
And we invite leftists on this show all the time and like, you're in a cult. Yeah, I'm pretty sure cultists don't allow their political rivals to come in and make their case for this. But they just don't want to come on the show because if you look, here's what we're doing. We're pulling up news articles, reading them, and then talking about it. If we brought in one of these leftists and then pulled up, say, like the Burisma scandal with Joe Biden, this actually happened before. We had Hunter Avalon on the show. When I mentioned that Joe Biden said, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting $1 billion, Hunter goes, that never happened. And I was like, here you go. Boom. Pulled it right up, played the video, and he was like, oh. And I'm like, bro, we're not making things up. All we do is read the news and then comment on it. That's it.
Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe, and we'll see you all there.